Welcome to another episode of the Camper Build. In this episode, we're going to go ahead and cut these 45-degree angles here. So the bevels provide a little bit of aerodynamics, and they also help keep the camper centered as you're driving down the highway. So I don't know how much this really helps with aerodynamics or help keep the camper centered when you're driving down the road. The main reason I did it is because I think it looks better. I just didn't like the way it looked with a 90-degree corner there. And also this provides a little bit of an extension of the camper. So that, that's the real reason, is I wanted a little bit of extension and it looks better. So I have my 8.5 foot rail here and then a 45 cut right here. Things get a little complicated because this 8.5 foot rail, I don't want to cut. So normally when you join two pieces together to get a 45-degree angle, you'd cut this piece at 22.5 and this piece at 22.5. But I want to keep this the way it is so I can modify this later or extend it or do whatever. So I have to kind of get a little creative when I cut this piece here. So we're going to go over that. So the way I determined the length of these pieces here is basically I have a 51-inch fixed length here for the front piece, and then I laid everything out to figure out what length I need to make these for the extension that I needed. So I don't have the dimensions anymore for these pieces here. What I did was I put everything in CAD and then got an exact measurement of what the lengths need to be. But I measured it just to kind of get a rough idea of it, and it's like 9 7/8 for the top part here, and then on the inside part it's 7 7/8. But I'd have to put this back into CAD to determine the exact length that these pieces need to be. So since I need a 45-degree angle, and this is my top rail that I don't want to cut to the 22.5 degrees, I have to keep this straight. I have to cut this to 45 degrees. And so the problem with that is it doesn't quite meet, and you get this overlap on the front and on the back here too, on the inside part. So I just have to get it as close as I can. It's not really critical about how this is kind of centered in here. The only piece that's critical is that all these pieces have to be the same size. So they can be, off a little bit, but just as long as they're all off a little bit. So that's the key thing, is just consistency for all your corner pieces. So for the 45 angle pieces, I have to do 4 1x2s, and then I have to do 2 1x1s, and then I have to do 2 of the 1x1 quarter rounds. So I start out with a 13/64 drill bit, which is pretty much the same diameter as the holes on the end of the 80/20. So a little loose, but close enough. The next step, I mount the piece in the jig that I made, and then I line up the drill bit here. So since I cut this piece at a 45-degree angle, this hole is actually going to be an oval now. And so what I want to do is I want to drill all the way over on the inside part, as far over as I can get it. So I've already lined up the drill bit, so you can see that it just barely touches that part of the piece there. And so there'll be a little gap on this side, and then they'll be touching on this side. So now that I have a hole drilled all the way through, I can loosen up these bolts over on this side and then take it out of the jig and flip everything around. So now I have the piece mounted to the jig, and the jig is in the vise. So the main reason why I use this 13/64 drill bit is to find the exit on the other side, so I know where to drill. And I keep this drill bit in, and then I can line everything up so it's exactly where it needs to be. So everything's all lined up and everything's tightened. And so now I'm going to do is take out the 13/64 drill bit and put in 17/64 drill bit. So I was using a 1/4-inch drill bit, but things were just a little too tight, so I just went up 1/64 of an inch. So it gives me a little bit more room to it makes it a little easier to get the bolts in and out. So all that's in there and it's tight, everything is snug, and this drill bit should be now aligned directly with this hole so I can drill it bigger. Since it's cutting at an angle, you need to kind of take it slow because you're kind of side loading that drill bit a little bit. And then once you get that first part going, drill bit falls out. Tighten that up. Thought I had it tight. Let's try that again. So I cleaned out that upper part, and now I should just be able to go straight through. So I had to lower the base plate here for the drill press and then extend this drill bit down as far as it can go, so it's just kind of barely hanging in the chuck here, and then make sure we're all lined up again. The reason why I need to lower all that down is because now that I've got that hole drilled, we're going to go up to the 3/8 drill bit, which is a longer drill bit, so you need more room to get that drill bit in. So unless all your drill bits are the same size, you're going to have to fiddle with it. The same process where we're just going to have to just slowly cut the upper part here because side loading the drill bit a little bit, and then once we get through that, then we'll drill down. And we only want to drill down as far as we need to, so where this head of the socket bolt here disappears in the hole, so it's flush. So we don't want to go too far, we just kind of inch it down. This can't be good for the drill bit. There we go. Got the top part cleaned off, so now we can just go ahead and drill down. So I haven't set my depths yet, so I'm not sure how far I need to go down. So still need to go a little bit further because it's just kind of hanging out a little bit. We'll go ahead and drill just a little bit more down, and then I can set my limits for the next ones. That should do it. And so there's the end result, and you can see the bolt goes all the way through on the bottom. So the last thing we need to do to finish this piece off here is just cut off this little tip right here, and then here's the completed piece where you can see I just have a 45-degree cut on this side right here, which makes everything line up. So you can see here why we need to cut that tip off, because the outside needs to be flush. The center slot is somewhat lined up, and then on the inside there's a little overlap as well, but that's not going to be an issue. So here you can see the final result where the tip is cut off, so it's flush with this rail here. There's still an overlap on the inside, but like I said, that's not an issue. The center slot here is somewhat lined up, which is close enough. And then you can just put that bolt straight through and attach the two pieces together. So here's the jig I made. It's 7 inches this way, 3.5 inches this way, with a 45-degree cut. And then I have bolts on this side and T-nuts on the other side. I didn't really make it to any specifications. I just kind of randomly cut it. And then with the T-nuts, it just goes right into the slot. Like this, just slides right in. And that way I can hold the piece in the vise right here. So here's why I made that jig, because I wasn't able to really mount this piece in my vise at a 45-degree angle, where I take a little piece of 45-degree stock there so I can line everything up to make sure that I have a 45-degree angle. And I just couldn't, I was just only clamping just on the very corner of the vise here, and so it just kept popping out. So with the new jig, everything works great. So these connections aren't very strong, but actually they turned out to be a lot stronger than I anticipated, which is good. So I'm not too worried about these connections being weak, because it's the sum of the parts as opposed to the single part. So even though this connection is weak, I've got a whole bunch of other stuff going on to give strength to this whole assembly. And so just kind of give you what it looks like on the overcab part. These parts aren't the parts, so they don't fit together, but it just kind of shows you what's going on. But I have my shelf here. Then the corner piece. Like I said, all of this is even and tight. And so these are attached to the rails, including this piece. And then on top of the shelf here, I have some 040 aluminum. There, so it looks something like that. And then on top of that, I have a piece of 1/2-inch plywood. And then this is all flush with, the plywood is flush with the rail here. And then all of this is bolted together, giving strength to the whole assembly. So for the roof, I'm also going to have probably some additional brackets here to kind of support everything. But for the roof, there's also the actual roof panels itself that will give structure to everything. And so this is what it looks like when you get it all installed. So I'm not sure if it's the best way to do it, but it's the way I did it, and it seems to work fine. But anyways, it's getting late, it's getting dark, so that's going to do it for another episode of the Camper Build. So if you want to follow along, like always, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one.